Welcome to a B-Roll Brothers podcast of ABC DVD, two brothers' alphabetical journey through their unhealthy film collection. I'm Josh.
And I'm Noah.
And today we are talking about Babe.
Babe.
The 1995 movie about a talking pig.
1995 was also the Chinese calendar year of the pig, so...
It was well-timed. It was directed by Chris Noonan. Mm-hmm. He hadn't done much. He's done Babe and Miss Potter and some TV miniseries and documentaries mainly. It was based on a Dick King Smith's 1983 children's story called The Sheep Pig. Also, he was one of the screenplay writers along with George Miller.
George Miller, whose credits beyond Babe is Mad Max, Mad Max 2, and Mad Max Fury Road. So I'm a little curious about, did he take a year off from Gasoline to be like, well, let's go back to something more simple, like a children's story?
Yeah, if you look at his IMDb history, it's a lot of Mad Max, this, and Happy Feet. It is he has like that metronome of one or the other. There's nothing in between.
Either way, something crazy is going on.
Yep. It is starring James Cromwell,
Lord Protector of England, born in 1599, died in 1658.
That's Oliver Cromwell. This is James Cromwell. He plays Farmer Hoggett. He's best known for LA Confidential, The Green Mile, and for, personally me, Star Trek, First Contact.
That was my first introductions to James Cromwell.
Yeah, Zephyr Cochrane. He invented warp drive for humanity. We got to show respect. Also starring Magda, I'm going to mispronounce her last name, Szubanski. She plays Esma Hoggett. She was known for Babe, Babe 2, and Happy Feet. I found it interesting that she plays a grandmother in this, but she was only 34 years old when filming.
Yes, I'm almost 40, and I do not look 40. It's the grays.
Yes. And then finally, voice acted by Christina Cavanaugh, who played Babe. She's best known for Dexter and Dexter's Laboratory, Chucky and Rugrats, and also had a small part in Jerry Maguire.
Mm-hmm. All my favorite childhood things, including Jerry Maguire.
Yeah. A quick summary of this movie. Babe is about anthropomorphic animals on a farm. Babe, from a young age, is sent to a farm after being won at a contest, and finds his worth as a sheep dog like animal, sheep pig, in hopes to show compassion and not be eaten.
No, that's a good. And it also won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. Yes. I think we've done 2 of these. This one has won an Oscar.
Yeah, it was up for 7 nominations, but won for Best Visual Effects. And probably worth it. This did transition the animal films from just filming them or putting peanut butter in their mouth like Mr. Ed,
right,
to actually having graphics track their face and manipulate it to look like they're actually talking.
No, and I was thinking about that when we were walking. It's like, I remember Milo and Otis and Homeward Bound, of where you just have a narrator going over the dogs, but they're not doing anything. They're just kind of mimicking actions.
Mm-hmm. The animals are trained, and they just narrate over it. Where this one, the animals are trained, but we also have graphics to manipulate the mouth, and we also have some pretty impressive puppetry to get the performances they want. This was filmed in Wales and Australia, but I noticed it's never really set anywhere. It's just generic farmland.
Countryside.
This could be England, this could be Australia, this could be America. And based on the driving and accents, any is acceptable.
Yes, it is farm country. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. It made $63.4 million domestic and about $254 million worldwide. So it did well.
That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do, movie. So it opens up with, again, narration, which I always somewhat bump on, but in this case it's necessary because this is a little kids movie. I know people have nostalgia for it, but without the narration there is no real story.
No, and since it is going off of a book, it does work in this case. I think I'm going to be coming from a different, because I didn't watch this as a kid, and nor did I watch this as an adult. I watched this as a father showing it to his kids, and so I might have a very different take on this versus someone who watched it as a kid and has that nostalgia bringing them back.
And I watched it younger, but I know I didn't watch it in theaters. I think I got it on when it was on regular TV. and I was like, oh, everyone's talking about this. Let's see what I think about it. So I wasn't as gung ho as a kid to watch this. Opens up with is it a litter of pigs? Is it I don't know what the term is for young pigs, but let's say a grouping of young piglets with their mom, and this one runt is singled out to be taken to a county fair, to be one of those weigh the pig, win the pig, and that's where James Cromwell and Magda Szubanski come in and they win the pig.
Yes, and Arthur, Farmer Arthur, has the look of a man who gets drug along to lots of places against his will. He has that weathered look of, okay, dear.
Yep, and he's clearly known around town and has that charming, folksy look to him, and a man of very few words. The joke was that James Cromwell, when choosing this role, kind of looked through and it's like, I don't have that many lines, but I'm apparently in all of the movie.
Yep, he is in almost every single scene. And the famous line, "That'll do, pig," comes up rather quickly in this film. It's like right off the back, like I think that's one of the first things he says.
They then take Babe to the farm where he starts meeting all the other animals.
And I mean, I think I'm going to start, it's like very much unlike the other movie where we could go scene by scene. There's a lot of things here. It's like was tough for me to watch all these scenes because there is like this vignette and this vignette and this vignette. It's like, and it's not until we get almost halfway through the movie before we get to the point.
And the vignettes are broken up into these obvious chapter breaks. They have title cards and 3, what I would say, incomprehensible mice telling you what's going to happen. And I don't know if the chapter breaks were necessary.
No, and I mean, like
slowed it down.
I'm coming from the father's point of view of watching this with kids, and there's moments where I am audibly sighing, like, okay. Yeah. Okay, like it's like I'm in my brain to make sure that I'm not falling asleep. Is like I'm thinking like, oh, this is like Animal Farm for kids. Oh, this is like Charlotte's Web, but not as fun. Oh, this this, that, and the other, and I'm waiting to get to like, okay, what is the where are we driving for? And we don't get that until he's like literally. I paused the movie and said, oh, we are halfway through. We are now getting to the point of he's going to do these sheep things.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid thinking this was a Charlotte's Web ripoff, and it's different enough where he has more self control in his destiny of instead of Charlotte making the webs, he's through his friendliness is becoming a part of the farm. And I feel like the first half of his time on the farm can be summed up by just his interaction with the duck Ferdinand saying, if you don't find worth, you're going to be eaten.
True.
And that's all that first half, and that's a scene. That's all you needed. And the rest is just a pig doing things.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of it is the film showing off what it can do. It's like, we spend several seconds of watching him go, la, 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 to which it just then ends. It's like, I bet that was a technical, feat at the time, but you're sitting there like, well, that was something. And then the whole thing with like, we have to get rid of the alarm clock wasn't necessary.
No.
The Rex, the dog who is voiced by Hugo Weaving,
that was a surprise.
Does this whole big council which has a very Animal Farm, like, there is a hierarchy here, and they don't really do anything. It just kind of like, you can't hang out with the duck. Whereas like, that might have been fun. It's like, no, dogs run the show, horses do this, sheep are stupid, which it hints at, but it never goes deeper into it.
No, it's very surface level. We're getting the start of what I would say the theme of the movie is of just not giving into prejudice and just being kind.
Right, and I think it is good for a kid's movie to show, like, listen, there are roles in society, but we can break them down. We can show respect to different classes, and that if you go beyond your prejudice, like the dogs being like, sheep are stupid, or sheep, all dogs are wolves, that you can kind of have this harmonious moment, but it takes a long time to get to those.
And there's a lot of stuff in between that just you question. There's a whole sequence where the Hoggett's children and grandchildren come in, and I question this entire scene beyond saying, "Oh, their kids don't want to be on the farm. Their grandkids don't like being on the farm." But the whole point, I feel, was to bring in this new fancy machine called a fax machine.
Ooh, a fax machine.
And it made me feel really old because it's like, who uses that anymore? But this is newfangled technology.
Well, and it's like, you almost like you almost want them to name drop like, oh, this is a Mitsubishi fax machine, because they make a meal out of this fax machine.
And all it does pay off later is he uses it to submit the form, but he probably could have done that by mail. He could have dropped it off at a store or something. It's like it's not really that pressing. So it's like this whole scene was kind of worthless.
Yeah, and there is no payoff with the family. It's like, oh well, there is like this. You're not part of the farm anymore. There is this move, but it doesn't come back to it. It isn't like, oh, the kids don't learn a lesson like, oh, being on the farm is cool, or oh, I do miss this lifestyle. It's just kind of, you're right. Yeah. It's just there.
They're not at the climax of the film saying, oh God, Dad's lost his mind, versus, and then seeing, oh no, he's got something here. Well, it's just there.
And also like the grandkids kind of being bratty, like he spent all this time building the dollhouse for her to kind of be like, I hate it, and like, nothing is ever resolved. He kind of smirks, going, "Yeah, my grandkids are kind of."
Like I said, he's a man of few words, but he's unflappable for a lot part. I think one of the more memorable scenes for a lot of people is him dancing to get Babe to eat.
Right.
It's this sweet moment of showing that he's now become more than just a future meal. He's something special that James Cromwell has seen from the beginning.
Yes. Well, and I like how he convinces his wife without convincing his wife to not kill the pig. Is like, well, you could win a prize. And, they do set that up as that she is very materialistic about her prizes. And she's very proud of her prizes. Like, oh, well, this could be another blue ribbon on my shelf.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do enjoy that part. And I do have to laugh at the competition at the end. It's like I really feel like the way that there's an announcer and it's on TV, it's like I really want there to be a welcome to ESPN Ocho, the sheepdog edition.
And I've seen the trials and they're fun, and it is a part of farm life, but to show this climax, this is probably the one part of the film that I actually did appreciate the filmmaking in. It is the most subdued, quiet climax of any film that I've ever seen.
Yes.
So before, you have cheering, you have music, you have all this, and then when Babe is rounding up the sheep after giving them the code word, it's completely silent. It is all natural sound. It's just the moving, and then it just breathes until the very end when everyone cheers. And I feel like that one was done well, but it doesn't have that emotional impact because everything leading up to it was just fluff and non-connected nonsense.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, it does show the greater story in that moment of like, no, this is his purpose. We start with Farmer Tiger at the very beginning saying, that'll do, pig, and ending with that'll do, pig, of like, you have kind of major worth. But it is that weird thing at the end of like, oh, well, yeah, I guess we were leading to this, and I guess it is kind of fun to see the sheepdog or the sheep pig, round everyone up and do it. But it is that uneasy feeling of, from an adult's perspective, like, did we actually go on this journey, or was it just like fun little vignettes to kind of chuckle at?
Yeah.
And it does the thing that a lot of kids' movies do that I kind of groan at, of, well, it doesn't say anything in the rule book that a pig can't be a sheepdog, and a dog can play basketball, because nothing says. It's like, okay, I understand this, but
there's got to be like someone, in the reality of saying like with the earbuds, because I swear they must have watched this and it's like, we can make a whole series of movies.
Yes.
So it's like, there's nothing in the rules. Like, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't bring a car onto our basketball court. It's just assumed.
Well, and especially this one's like, well, it does say sheepdog. I mean, I know it. You know, they say like, well, it never asked what the dog's name was. Like, yes, but it does say sheepdog competition.
Yeah.
And I know I am kvetching and making little things because like I said, I am watching this as an adult. It's like, and it was one of those movies where I felt the time go by very slowly versus something that someone who might have watched this with a nostalgia factor, showing it to their kids and being excited. I'm sure this is a very fun and exciting thing. I just don't have that. I have more of a connection to like the 1970s Charlotte Webb cartoon, which I was excited to show to my kids, or Homeward Bound. And I think that is what I think has its staying power, is like if you have that nostalgia factor. And
I'm not saying that people don't deserve this movie doesn't deserve the nostalgia factor, because I think I just watched something this week that made reference to That'll Do Pig.
Oh yeah.
And I can see people going, okay, there's these key moments of him singing the Christmas song, That'll Do Pig, the dance with James Cromwell, and then the final trials, and I think Bahram You stayed around for a while.
Right.
It just, for me, those are moments in a not real connected story. And as you mentioned with Charlotte's Web, we had a story from beginning, middle to end. And then with emotional impact and entertainment value of like Homeward Bound, of saying these dogs and cat need to get home and they're overcoming adversity, versus, hey, this is just life on a farm.
Right. And I think, I think for film history, it definitely plays a part. It's in the zeitgeist. The That'll Do Pig definitely has stayed around, but I feel like I would be interested to hear someone go back and watch it, or be like, oh, I've always heard about this, and then they go and see it's like, oh, that was a lot different than I remember it, or I imagine it. Very much, I'm going to reference like when I watched Flashdance for the first time, and you have that famous scene of her dunking water on herself, or at the very end doing the dance thing, and then you realize like, wow, this movie was very different than the historical pieces like build up. It's like there's a lot of movie you're like, oh, this doesn't get talked about.
Yeah, and there's a great touchstone for, I think, millennials of, you were either like a Goonies or a Monster Squad, and or you could have been both, but if you did not watch it in the 80s or early 90s and you watched it now, you would think everyone's crazy, that these movies are garbage. And so there is that in the right time, at the right age, this is perfect. And I think this is a younger kids movie. This is like your first outing to the movie theater with your kids. They now can settle down, but you don't want anything too scary or anything. And that's a shame, because there are kids movies that just, as you get older and watch them, or even if you watch them at older times, still work because they've said, no, we have a story, and we're going to show it to everyone.
Right. And I think this one still has the darkness of the late 80s, early 90s, where you could put something scary, because I know that my daughter did not appreciate the sheep being killed.
Yeah.
That's where she checked out. But there was this time period where like, you can show a scary thing to a kid as long as you end on a happy note. We're all okay.
If you shift somewhere happy.
Bambi's mom can get shot. It's okay, because he's okay at the end. But
Littlefoot's mom still traumatized.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, this came out in a good year of actually landmark children's movies. I mean, the first Jumanji came out, which at the time didn't seem like it was going to be that big of a deal, but it's still going on.
Right.
And then the very first Pixar motion picture, Toy Story, came out the very same year. So I am actually surprised that this had a staying power, considering it was going up against these other giant, who knew at the time, landmark films.
Right. And it is kind of that thing of like saying, oh, this could be a reason why I didn't see the theaters, is there were these other things. Now, like I said, I was like 11, 12 when this came out. I don't think that was, geared towards me. And I think you are right. It is more of a 6-7-year-old kind of movie.
Or lower, yeah.
Whereas like it wasn't for me. And if you did see it at the time, I'm sure this does hold a special place in your heart.
And should. I mean,
we are not going to, yuck someone's yum.
Yeah,
that's not.
As we mentioned with Charlotte's Web and Homeward Bound, someone could watch that today and go, "This is awful," and it's we'll probably come to them.
Oh, I know we're going to have movies in our collection that are completely being held up by nostalgia and nothing more.
Yeah, and we might look at it critically and go, ooh, that... I mean, I think, what was that one with Rockadoodle? We loved as kids. Yeah. I don't think that holds up.
I'm sure it does not. If anyone were to Google Rockadoodle and be like, wait, you guys are okay with this? Like, yeah, kind of.
The rooster was Elvis. We didn't know. So.
But no, I think I would suggest this for people who have nostalgia. If you do have little kids who would get a chuckle out of a talking pig or some singing rodents, this would work. I think anything beyond that, you're gonna have kids kind of be like, I don't get this. I don't understand.
Yeah, I want to watch something else on one of my streaming devices.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, the only other fun little thing that I saw is that very much like when Finding Nemo came out and goldfish sales went up, is when this came out, pork sales dropped 20% in the U.S. So it obviously had an impact on the greater audience if it meant that kids were like, Mommy, don't buy that pig.
Well, and it apparently reached a larger audience than our cynical hearts because Tarantino put it as his favorite 1995 film, one of his favorite 1995 films.
Well, and Tarantino doesn't have a heart.
I mean, you think this guy who's for violence, like, no, there is a place for charm. And James Cromwell was a vegetarian while filming it, decided to become a vegan afterwards.
Right.
And he said in an interview that this was like a turning point in his acting career, and I believe it's true because he went from a unknown character actor to like a very well-known character actor who's been in a lot of things. And he said, I got a trip to Australia. I didn't have many lines to memorize, but I got to be in the entire movie. And instead of agonizing and doubting myself, I got to just enjoy myself. And he said that when he was doing his makeup, he really didn't look in the mirror. He was just talking to the makeup artist. But on the day that he had to do the trials, there's the final shot of That'll Do Pig straight into the camera, and he saw a reflection of himself, and it was... He said it looked a lot like his dad talking to him, and said, That'll Do Pig is like, that'll do, Jamie. You did a good job.
Yeah.
And he's like, that changes his acting mentality. It's like, you're doing a good job. Do your best in every role. Don't stress about it. And it changed his world. And it's like, I'm glad for it, because he's in a lot of movies that I like.
And I think James Cromwell is one of those character actors, if you look him up saying, oh, that guy. And he is. He is a tall, string bean, Irish-looking man, and I think that a lot of movies have benefited from his presence and his form of acting, because he is also an actor that can do things without saying a lot. He's got a lot of physical actions in him, which this movie definitely shows that he is giving you a lot of information without saying a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So hopefully you haven't unpacked your pitchforks and torches and are ready to come after us.
Yeah.
Please love the movie if you love it.
No, watch it. See how you feel about it. If you don't, have a slab of bacon. Yeah. If you do, don't have that bacon.
But, just to be safe, we're going to go hide out somewhere. Do you know where we're going to hide out?
Where we're going to hide out?
We're going to hide out at a cabin in the woods.
A cabin in the woods?
That is our next movie. I guess horror film, a deconstructed horror film, Cabin in the Woods. If you can catch it, please watch it before next week.
Yes, because this one will have spoilers, and that will change the movie, so please watch it ahead of time.
Yep. And thanks for joining us this week, and we'll...
catch you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Right. Bye. Born in 1599, died in 1658.
That's Oliver Cromwell.